The United States Supreme Court has issued a major decision that limits the ability of federal judges to impose nationwide injunctions. ICE arrested over 100 Iranian nationals across the country. And finally, we'll cover an unfortunate incident at Dulles International Airport. A U.S. Customs and Border Protection K9 officer was assaulted while on duty. Let's start with the Supreme Court decision. So on Friday, the United States Supreme Court issued a 6-3 decision that has major implications for how federal policies are challenged in court. The ruling states that individual federal judges do not have the power to issue nationwide injunctions that prevent federal policies from being enforced nationwide. So in plain English, it means that one radical judge sitting in California or New York can no longer block an entire presidential policy for the whole country.
The way I understand it is SCOTUS isn't necessarily ruling on the constitutionality of birthright citizenship, the 14th Amendment. They're going to be ruling on the ability for these lower district judges to issue these nationwide injunctions. So depending on what we hear today, we're still going to have question marks about birthright citizenship. Is that right?
That's right. And with the national injunctions or universal injunctions issue, the justices obviously were concerned. They have previously expressed their discontent with district courts issuing these orders. So there does seem to be a majority saying that this exceeded authority. The question is, how will they thread this needle? How will they limit the district courts
Jonathan, let me just interrupt you.
Forward?
I'm sorry for the interruption, but Shannon has some information for us. Let's go to you, Shannon Bream. You're there with that case?
Okay, yes. So this is at least a partial, if not a full, and we're reading this because there are several concurrences here, but it's written by Justice Barrett, which goes against the ruling that I just gave the guidance because she's one of the least junior justices, but she was assigned to write this opinion. And essentially what she says some say that the universal injunctions give the judiciary a powerful tool to check the executive branch, but she says federal courts do not exercise general oversight of the executive branch. They resolve cases and controversies consistent with the authority Congress has given to them. When a court concludes the executive branch has acted unlawfully, the answer is not for the court to exceed its power, sounding very much like they are limiting these injunctions. We know here that they have granted at least partially the stay to these preliminary injunctions, but they say only to the extent that the injunctions are broader than necessary to provide complete relief to each plaintiff withstanding to sue. They say the lower courts have to move expeditiously with respect to each of these plaintiffs. It says the injunctions are also stayed to the extent that they prohibit executive agencies from developing and issuing public guidance about the executive plans to implement the executive order. If you remember, part of this executive order on birthright citizenship, the stay was that the agencies that would be responsible for actually implementing the change with birthright citizenship, those agencies couldn't even start making a plan. So that part of it is lifted as well. We do see that the dissent here comes from the three justices you expect. It looks like Justice Sotomayor filed the dissent. Kagan and Jackson joined that. Justice Jackson also filed a dissenting opinion, but there are a lot of concurrences here. Justice Thomas, Justice Alito, there are others. So we'll parse through this, but at its first blush, it looks like this is a win in putting a limit on these nationwide injunctions. We'll see how far those limits go as we dig back through this.
This decision stems from legal challenges against an executive order that Trump issued. That order sought to end birthright citizenship for children born in the United States to individuals who are unlawfully present. So for context, birthright citizenship has been part of the U.S. law since the ratification of the 14th Amendment following the Civil War. It grants automatic citizenship to anyone born on U.S. soil with very limited exceptions. The constitutionality of the executive order itself remains unresolved. The court's ruling does not decide whether the birthright citizenship policy can be changed. However, what this ruling does make clear is that no single federal judge has the authority to block a federal policy across the entire country. Legal challenges must now apply only within the jurisdiction where the lawsuit is filed. Supporters of the decision argue that it restores a balance between the executive branch and the judiciary, and it prevents judicial overreach. Critics argue that it makes it harder for challengers to stop policies that they believe are unlawful. Regardless of perspective, this is a significant shift in how federal policies will be litigated moving forward. In a separate development, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, has confirmed the arrest of over 100 Iranian nationals across the United States in the past week. According to ICE, the individuals arrested were found to be in violation of U.S. immigration laws. Violations included overstayed visas, immigration fraud, and other related offenses. In addition, some of those arrested were flagged for potential national security concerns. Specific details about the national security concerns have not been publicly disclosed.
ICE is at the forefront of making sure that we're rounding up all these individuals or attempting to locate the ones that did get in. You have one that with admitted ties to Hezbollah. We also arrested a former sniper from a hostile country who snuck into the United States. So those are the type of individuals we want to locate.
So you hear it there. That's Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons talking about the work his agency is doing trying to find and apprehend Iranian nationals in the U.S., given concerns of potential sleeper cells here. And ICE has been busy. Federal sources telling Fox in the last week alone, ICE has arrested 130 Iranian nationals all across the United States. And ICE currently has 670 Iranian nationals in ICE detention. Now, we talk about some of those people who are detained right now. You just heard Todd Lyons explain some of it. This guy, a former Iranian Army sniper who had his military ID card on him at the time of his arrest. This guy, a former IRGC member with suspected ties to Hezbollah. This man had a gun in his waistband, and ICE says another one of them was a known or suspected terrorist. So they are going out and they're going into overdrive trying to track down these potential threats. For more on this, we want to bring in former Acting ICE Director Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, ICE is really cranking it up when it comes to finding these Iranians. Your thoughts?
Yeah, they're doing a great job, and Director Lyons and Tom Homan are doing a fantastic job focusing in and getting these people locked up and eventually removed because they see them as a danger. And it does show a drastic change. And unfortunately, it's a change from the previous administration where they seem to put public safety and national security secondary to their open borders agenda. And I think you were reporting earlier there were 1,500 Iranians stopped during the Biden administration, and they let in over half of them. We also know that they let in 99 people that were stopped at the border. This is the Biden administration that were on the terror watch list, and they still let them into the country. So it's a shame that this administration, the current one, has to play cleanup for people that should have never been allowed in to begin with.
This enforcement action comes at a time of heightened tension in the Middle East and growing concerns over border security. ICE officials stated that operations like this are essential for upholding the integrity of the U.S. immigration system and protecting national security. The arrests also raise broader questions about how individuals from high-risk countries are tracked and monitored once they enter the United States. Federal authorities emphasized that these types of operations are not uncommon, but the size and scope of this particular sweep were significant. And finally, a disturbing incident took place this week at Dulles International Airport involving a Customs and Border Protection K9 officer. Hamed Ramadan Bayoumi Ali Marie, a 70-year-old man from Egypt, arrived on a flight from Cairo. First of all, why does he have so many names? But anyways, during routine inspection, a CBP K9 named Freddie, a 25-pound beagle, detected over 100 pounds of undeclared and prohibited agricultural items